We have a bit of tape. A Bathtub Boy, the sportscaster over at MSNBC, it does that show called Countdown at 8 p.m. Eastern.
This war of lies.
This sportscaster who has inserted himself into American political life as if he had something weighty to say instead of having something weighty to sit on. He and Edwards in this startling example of hypocrisy. Absolutely startling. Now, Bathtub Boy, the sportscaster, has never interviewed anybody who holds an opinion that runs countervailing to his own. He is true Rosie in this regard. He cannot face someone arguing back.
Here comes the underhanded pitch. The gigantic softball lumbers to the plate. It's another exciting edition of John Gibson's Democrats Interviewing Democrats.
And this is perfect. I mean, if there could be no better definition of Democrats interviewing Democrats than this interview by Bathtub Boy, the sportscaster, the host of Countdown on MSNBC, of John Edwards.
The American people today are rising up, demanding to know how at least one Democrat somehow slipped through the system last night. I'll resist the temptation to ask you that question about how the Republicans can answer al-Qaeda if they can't answer a Democrat. Instead, can you tell us for the record whether you have any contingency plans in place if, heaven forbid, sometime in the future, someone who's not a Democrat, even maybe an actual registered Republican, were somehow able to ask you a question?
Heaven forbid. I mean...
Heaven forbid, indeed. We've taken care of that, Bathtub Boy. We don't go near Fox News debates. There might be a question that comes from the audience or via email or the phone that would come from a Republican. And we've refused to subject ourselves to Brit Hume or Wendell Goler or Chris Wallace. They cannot ask me questions. And as a matter of fact, that little line you used, how can they expect to stand up to al-Qaeda if they can't stand up to a little questioning from a...
He poached that.
And that was the Fox line about him.
Right.
I think that was our Grand Master's line about him. So he just steals it outright. And listen to what Edwards says. This is a guy, just to remind you, who would not appear before a Fox questioner.
No, we can't possibly expect somebody who answers questions from either independents or the other party to get elected president of the United States. How could anybody be ready to do that? I think this whole discussion is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and it was ridiculous when you started it, when you told Wolf Blitzer.
I didn't see any reason under those circumstances to give Fox a special forum. I think they have a long history in how they deal with Democrats and how they talk about Democrats, and I saw no reason to give them a specialized forum.
A long history of how they deal with Democrats and talk about Democrats, so I won't come near Fox. But should CNN plant a Republican debate with Democratic operatives, actual members of a campaign staff like Ms. Clinton's, oh, that's just fine.
Speaking of ridiculous, what do you see as the biggest gift the Republicans have handed all the Democratic candidates, including yourself, up to and including last night? And what can the party do as it starts to focus on the actual general election of 2008?
I just have to stop. I've been asking questions for 33 years for a living. I've not always been very good at it. But you just heard a classic amateur question. You're supposed to ask that question at KUYT in Santa Barbara of the City Council and County Board of Supervisors. You are not supposed to go up with a major presidential candidate and ask such an obvious, stupid, softball question as that one.
But there's a breaking news story. You mentioned Iraq. There's a breaking story about what Australia is going to do. The Prime Minister-elect, Kevin Rudd, who just succeeded or will succeed.
Does anybody care, really, honestly,
nobody.
about what Australia is going to do?
He's just reaching.
Oh, my God.
They're going to take their 50 people out.
Australia elected a conservative who speaks Mandarin Chinese, weirdly, and he's going to pull out their people out of Iraq. At the moment, we're winning. The Canadian general in Afghanistan says, we're winning. The Iraqis in Iraq say, we're winning. Bathtub Boy, John Edwards, and the new Prime Minister of Australia say, we're not. I don't know. They're pretty isolated on that little life raft out in that big ocean of we're winning.
Last point, this has been raised in Iowa by you, summarized by something that's phrased on the internet as this is an election, not an auction.
This guy takes the longest wind up
That was a
to a
beach
question.
ball.
I mean, geez, just put it up there. Let him hit it with a big old bat.
You're addressing the subject of raising funds and pledging. Explain that, if you would.
Well, I don't think that Iowa caucus goers, New Hampshire primary voters, South Carolina primary voters, Nevada caucus goers, I don't think they're going to vote for somebody just because they raise the most money. In fact, in some ways, that runs against what the Democratic Party is supposed to represent. We don't win elections. I heard your earlier discussion. We don't win elections by raising the most money. We win elections on principle, by doing what's right, by actually being the party of the people, not by being the candidate who's actually raised the most money.
Now, where is the question? Huh? Where is the interruption? Senator Edwards, could you kindly explain how Democrats, run out of office once for graft and corruption, are back in Congress again and have a lower approval rating among U.S. voters than even the guy who's carrying this war on his back? Please explain it to me. I'm just looking over a list of guests on Bathtub Boys' show. There's how many were not Democrats?
2.
That's right. Angry Rich is right. 2. Democrat, Joe Trippi, Howard Dean, Lawrence O'Donnell, Russ Feingold, Barney Frank, Jay Rockefeller, George McGovern, Hillary Clinton, James Webb, Hillary again, David Boies, Patrick Murphy, Charles Schumer, Pat Leahy, Joe Biden, Madeleine Albright, Lanny Davis, Al Gore again.
What a coward.
This guy will not face a Republican, not to answer a question, but to ask one.
30 years of hard news experience. Take that, Vanderbilt boy.
Be like Switzerland and sort of try to be neutral.
John Gibson on Fox News Talk.